Welcome back to Twinspiration. It's Aspen, the better half of the Summers twins.
And Ashley, the best half of the Summers twins.
Before we get into our good news story, or our inspirational in it,
I don't know. Say the wrong thing.
Sorry. We have to update everybody about Ashley's water bottle. If you're a new listener, well, Ashley, you can tell the story.
Okay, I'll tell the story. This is very important. I think we might have talked about this in this interview. I have this water bottle that Aspen gets mad at me in every episode when I drink my water because I can't get through a whole episode without water. But my parents got me this water bottle for Christmas because I can't drink water in the car or while I'm walking, otherwise I'll spill it all over my face. So they got me this one that has a flip top and a straw so that I can drink it without having to pour the water on my face. So that is just my water bottle that I use all the time. So I've always used it on the podcast, but apparently when I flipped the top open, it was really noisy. And Aspen got really mad every time I opened it when we were recording.
Well, because she would open it right in the middle of when I was talking, and then I couldn't use it because it sounded like a bomb in the background.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, for real. And then when she sipped it, it was like... horrible slurping noises, which is gross, so it was just a little bit obnoxious.
Well, it made those noises because the straw started to get loose, so it wasn't like me slurping, it was the straw squeaking. Anyways, so then I had this whole problem on the airplane a couple weeks ago where the pressure of the plane was sucking up all the water into the straw, and then I would open it to drink some water, and it would like splurt 1,000,000 pounds of water in my face and got me all wet, and all the people next to me all wet. So I couldn't drink water the whole plane ride, except for that after I got off the plane, then my parents and I decided that I probably could have just taken the top off and drank it like a normal water bottle, but I didn't think of that while I was on the plane. So then I was at home, I put my water bottle on the table and I filled it up, and all of a sudden I walked back over there to drink some water, and there was a big giant puddle of water all over the counter. Turns out somehow there was a giant hole, well, probably not a giant hole, but because my water bottle used to spill after I'd only had it for like 5 months, and then it would spill all over everything, but I think there was a hole in the top. But then the water was all leaking out of the bottom, and there was a big hole on the bottom of my water bottle. I have no idea how it got there. It just appeared, but then we had to throw that water bottle away, and now I am back to being unable to drink water whenever I'm in the car, which was sad because we were in the car for a couple hours at a time last weekend.
Yeah, it was very tragic.
Yeah, that was a long story, but I think it was important for everybody to know this problem.
Yes, I think it was. I also think it's important for people to know that when Ashley says we had to throw it away, she means she noticed that it was leaking all over the table, and I said, you should probably throw that away, and she said, yeah, and then left it there because she's too attached to things and won't throw them away, so then my mom and I secretly threw it away when she was gone.
I wasn't too attached to it to throw away, I just didn't see the hole, so I thought maybe...
You thought maybe it was just leaking for no reason?
Yeah, like we could fix it or something, because it was a nice water bottle. I've only had it for 6 months.
Okay, well, now that we've all been properly updated on Ashley's water bottle situation, I have found the best inspirational in it story. Usually Ashley and I look through them together before we do the episodes, but I just found this one, and I didn't tell her what it was yet because I think she's going to think it's really cute.
I'm so excited. The suspense is killing me.
There's this lady named Dorothy Fideli who was a 77-year-old resident of a retirement community in Ohio. And
we love Ohio.
I know, we do love Ohio. We should do our next episode about Ohio.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone will listen to that. Except half of our listeners live in Ohio,
yeah.
So hi, Aunt Stacey.
Anyway, so Dorothy was this really amazing lady who had overcome a lot in her life. I don't know why I'm talking like she's dead. She's not. She's still alive. But this story happened in the past. Okay, so she had overcome a lot in her life. She had a really tumultuous marriage, and she didn't have access to education as a child, so she taught herself to read when she was 75.
Aww.
And she was really just the light of the retirement community, and she said that she was always trying to find ways to make people laugh and brighten up the other people's days. So she had this idea that she thought it would be really funny if there was a marriage ceremony, like a wedding, at the retirement community. Like I said, she had a really tumultuous marriage, and she had just gotten married at the courthouse, and she had always dreamed of having a real big white wedding. So she decided to marry herself. And at first she just wanted to do it to like be funny, and she went into the owner's office and asked him to perform the ceremony, and told her kids that she wanted to have a wedding for herself, and her kids thought that was a really fun idea to celebrate their mom, and so they got her a dress, and like you can see in the picture, we'll put it on the link, she has a veil on her walker. She said that it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to her besides having kids, because it was just something that she had always dreamed about, and everyone in the community came together to celebrate her. And she had invited everyone at the retirement community and was trying to teach them about self-love, and like gave them all these flowers and told them to use the flowers to represent themselves, and it's what's on the inside that counts. And like, it was just the cutest story ever. I'm just in love with this story. I think it's so sweet that she wanted to do that to make everybody else happy, but also that it was such a meaningful experience for her. And also the idea of marrying yourself, like that's just such a 70-year-old person thing to do. That's so cute.
That is so cute. That's my favorite story we've had.
I know.
We should interview her.
Oh my gosh, we should. We should see if we can find her contact information.
We should call her. I bet we could call her retirement.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't let us.
Yeah, she also might not know how to use Zoom.
Well, someone could help her.
That's true.
Or we could go out to Ohio and go there and interview her.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We could do a live interview.
Let's do it. Okay.
Watch out, Ohio. Here we come.
On this episode of Twinspiration is part 2 of our interview with Elizabeth Karsell Horne. If you haven't listened to part 1 from 2 weeks ago, you should go listen to that. But it is also okay if you listen to this one first. We are very excited to share the second part of this interview with you, and we loved getting to interview her, and we hope that you take lots of inspiration from her story and enjoy this episode.
Yeah. I know we've talked to you for a long time, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but we did want to talk a little bit about, I guess, just how you strive to be different from other performing arts education experiences. Obviously, you touched a little bit on the career side of it and really giving students real world tools so that they can go out and apply what they're learning as far as the acting side of it. But I mean, we've talked about this a lot. When we first came to CSA, we didn't really know what we were doing, and we had, before we got there and through a lot of other classes and youth theater things,
high school theater
that we would do, it just felt very much like if you weren't the best, you weren't valuable, or you weren't worth their time. You just they had to deal with you because you were paying to be there. Or like in high school theater, if you weren't exactly what they wanted, then you weren't worth being in the class, or you weren't worth being in the show. And we had a lot of positive experiences too, but we also had a lot of not even negative, but just discouraging. Yeah, discouraging. Like I've told Ashley, I think if I hadn't gone to CSA, I probably would have quit acting when I was 13 or 14, because I remember there were a couple just really low points where I felt like I just wasn't good and nobody had any faith in me that I could get better. But then I would go to CSA, and no matter what, because I'm sure you remember when we started, we weren't very good. But
you've gained a lot of skills since then.
Yes.
You were always absolutely darling, and you always tried really hard.
But I think that was what felt so special about CSA, is that it felt like you guys always believed in us. I mean, you and Emily were, I feel so fortunate that you were our teachers for most of the time that we were there, and you just always encouraged us that we did have potential, and it was never like, you're not good, but you'll get better. I never felt like I wasn't good. Yeah. I just, like all of a sudden one day I started getting callbacks or getting offers from agents when that wasn't happening before, and then I was like, oh, I guess now I actually am good. But like before that, I felt like if I would get not great feedback, it was like, oh, well, they thought you were really good, they just think you need more experience, or they want to watch you and see how you grow and not like they didn't like you, so sorry. I don't know. I just feel like it was such an impactful experience to feel believed in and feel like important and valued, even though we weren't the best ones in the class. How do you create that environment? And is it hard, especially as you've grown, having so many students, to make every single student feel like they are equally talented and equally valuable? Or is that just something that I guess comes naturally?
Great questions. Okay, so multi-part answer. You'll be shocked.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, as far as valuing students, of course, we absolutely do. And like both of you, I love to create. I love to create stories. And so any person, any young actor who comes to us, I could create a whole, movie trilogy for any single one because, I see so much that's fascinating in every single student. So in terms of that, like everybody's so unique. Everybody's like, I can just imagine them in these different roles and different scenarios and whatever. Of course, we can't make a whole movie trilogy for every student, right? Because, but I guess maybe seeing that possibility is maybe that value that you were feeling in terms of your acting skill, aside from, of course, just your intrinsic value as a person. And then in addition, being a young person, a child who's figuring out life and the world. And we always want to create a safe space for all of that, as well as the acting exploration side of things. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, as far as feeling valued, I think it's because you really were. As far as not being the best, first of all, I take exception because you were the best at certain things, right? Acting is not like running a race where you can say this person finished first. This person had the fastest time. And that's what's so much fun about it is everybody's unique, right? And so each student is the very best in class at something, even if we don't know what it is yet, right? So, that's part of the fun is like in the storytelling world, there is room for everybody who has the desire to do it. And that's what it comes down to. Both of you had the desire to stick with it and work at it, even when it was discouraging, even when it was difficult, even when you felt like maybe you weren't getting anywhere for some time. It was just a thing that you felt drawn to enough, that you kept working at it. And it's really amazing what you've been able to accomplish. I am full of admiration. I mean, here you are still in college and you're producing multiple projects, writing and producing and directing, as well as performing in multiple projects. You're teaching, you're running a business. I mean, it's just staggering what you have been able to do in such a short time. And I really feel like that's because you have the desire. And so for someone, who may have apparently more natural talent than others or whatever, of course, we all know it's not like either you've got it or you don't for acting, right? I've always said I feel like the it factor is desire. If you enjoy it enough to stick with it and just always try to find a way, right? This didn't work. Okay, let me try another way. Let me try another way. Every single person I know who just insists and says, I am an actor or I am a writer or I am a, whatever kind of creator. If you just insist on it, you'll get to do meaningful work. As far as, how we've continued to value each student as our school has grown. For one thing, we, as I've mentioned, we've been incredibly beyond blessed with the instructors that have found their way to CSA. It's really hard to hire instructors here because of the qualifications that we need in terms of the acting background as well as the classroom skills. And then the biggest thing is just kind of like the heart for the work. They have to be really caring people, like our students have to be seen, right? It's funny because now I only teach one class a week and then occasionally I'll fill in when needed. So in some ways, sometimes I sort of miss those relationships. I, miss the days when it was just me and Troy at the very beginning or then just me and Emily, because I knew every student so well. Like, I feel like I got to know you guys really well because I was teaching you like once or twice a week for at least the first, I think, couple years, maybe. I can't remember exactly But anyway, I feel like, students like you, I got to know really well. And now there are students that I really don't know well, but their teachers do. Their teachers that work with them every week. It's kind of a bittersweet joy when we'll have a showcase and Mr. Tom is there supporting me, or Miss Emily is there to read with her students or whatever. And the actors will, when it's all over, they'll run up to Mr. Tom and say, "So what did you think? How did I do? Oh, did you see I did this, or I applied that note that you gave me," or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. They have that relationship. So even though our school has grown, fortunately, our staff of caring and qualified acting teachers has also grown. I felt like there was one other thing you mentioned that I wanted to address, but I've already forgotten what it was.
I don't know, you said a lot.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of babbling. I babble a lot on this podcast, and then I have to go edit it all out.
Who knows? But that's great.
I mean, I think it sounds like it just kind of comes naturally to you that you really do value all of the students, and I think that is such an important thing to just, like, when you're teaching kids or even just with people in general, to recognize that everybody has value. And I mean, I loved when I was substituting there over the summer, and I think it was after a showcase, and you had sent out that thing to read to the students who didn't get callbacks, and it said something like, your worth as a human being is not determined by your success as an actor or something. And I just thought that was so important, because I think that in acting or in really anything, especially when you're a kid, you can get so wrapped up in your success or perceived success. And I think that it's so important to be in an environment where you feel like you are valued, even if you're not meeting like the traditional idea of success, and that you are free to try new things and be successful or fail and make mistakes. That was really something that was so important to us about being students at CSA. I loved how you said that every student in the class is the best at something, because I think that is very true. And I think we kind of notice that with the students that we teach, that it's so important to us to make sure that they all feel like they're equally valued and equally talented, and that everyone leaves feeling uplifted and encouraged. And I think that we just notice that all of them have so many amazing qualities, and they're all so different, and it can just make such a difference. I mean, I think we had that experience that it just makes such a difference when somebody recognizes that, and it's not just like some of our experiences where it was like, oh, this kid is the star and everyone else stand in the back and we don't know your names, and
and especially in acting and in this industry, because it's such a cutthroat industry. And on the one hand, when you are acting and you're sharing your heart and soul with the audience, and then for someone to make you feel like you're not good and that you aren't a good enough actor makes you feel like you're not good enough as a person, when you feel like you are sharing yourself with the audience. When you face rejection in Hollywood, I think it feels a lot more like a rejection of you than a rejection of what you're doing. And I remember one time, this was far into our time at CSA, when I was pretty used to getting positive feedback after showcases, and there was one casting director who came, and they really liked me and didn't like you. Really liked Ashley, and they kept asking her all of these questions, because we would do those like about me spiels in our slates, and they were like so impressed with all of her accomplishments and seemed not impressed at all with anything that I said. And then they gave Ashley really good feedback and gave me like the worst feedback I had gotten in a really long time, and I was just devastated because she's my twin sister. And so I was like, this isn't even like, oh, you don't have the right look, or you don't have the right voice, or whatever. It's like, this person who's exactly like you is better than you. And I can't remember what you said, but I remember I was just feeling like so discouraged when I got to class the day after that showcase. And then you just made me feel like it's not you, and it was one bad day or one negative feedback, and it doesn't define you. And it was just, I mean, I think there are a lot of moments like that, but for some reason I'm like still remember that specific experience. And I feel like it was just times like that made you remember that you weren't defined by getting a role or not getting a role, or getting good feedback or bad feedback.
I'm so glad to hear that, that was part of your takeaway from your time here. I really am glad to hear that. It's a tough thing, right? Because it's like, okay, now go give it your all, like you said, bare your soul, and then to just let it go and be like, But yeah, it was just one day. It was just one performance, because not only is it the performance, but with our events, there's usually some feeling of potential progress that can happen from it, right? Like, oh, I've made this relationship with a casting director, or I've, got a call back from this agent or whatever. So yeah, it's quite the balancing act, right? To work so hard at it, but also keep it in perspective for sure. I remembered the thing that you asked me that I didn't answer.
Yeah.
You were asking like how we differentiate ourselves as a business. And my answer is going to be really annoying.
Yeah, I'm so curious.
As I mentioned, I am like not a bottom line person. Like I really have to like force myself to, like do the books and study anything related to business. I mean, it's terrible. We haven't advertised in years. We're about to, but like I'm really comfortable with attraction. I'm not that comfortable with promotion. I'm like, okay, it's like I think if I can just create the best possible experience, then the people that are the right fit for us will find us. And honestly, it's actually been true because like I said, I haven't advertised since before the pandemic. So, I mean, I guess in that way I wasn't wrong. I never thought about that before. But nonetheless, I have this mom who has 3 of her kids in the elite program, and they're all so great, so hardworking, just lovely people. And she was like, okay, we live not even a mile away, and I'd never heard of you until I specifically Googled acting classes near me. She's like, I found you because I searched you, but there's so many people who could benefit from this type of experience that might not even think of it unless you kind of put it in front of them. And so I don't know, I hadn't really thought of that in that way in terms of marketing as a generous act to helping people find a solution, and so maybe that's why I always felt so uncomfortable with it, because I felt like it was more a self-serving act. I don't know about self-serving, but like it was like, it's to make sure that we can keep operating and continue serving our students, right? But then I hadn't really thought of it in terms of so many of the people who would benefit from this experience will just never hear of it. Anyway, but in terms of differentiation, all this to say, I don't worry about it at all. That's my annoying answer. I really don't. I just figure, I think the important thing is that people find if they want to study acting or anything, but that they find the right situation for them. I really don't do a lot of comparison to what other people are doing. Certainly I'm inspired, as like, for example, Scott Sedita, who's an acting coach in Los Angeles. He wrote the 8 Characters of Comedy book, as well as some other great books. I've been very inspired by him in terms of his work, in terms of understanding sitcoms that did not come naturally to me. I was a person who naturally understood drama, the dramatic story arc and characters and all that, right? So he like cracked the code for me on sitcoms. So very inspired by Scott Sedita and his work. Obviously mentioned all the teachers I'd had when I was young that were very inspiring to me. And like the Groundlings is an amazing program, and they're improv, right? And we're on camera acting. There's some overlap, but there's also a lot that doesn't relate. But just in terms of their structure and business ethics, that kind of thing. So I'm inspired by other schools, but I don't really feel like we have any competition, or that anyone does, because everybody offers something a little bit different. And the people who need that, we hope will find what they need.
I guess that maybe that is what differentiates you, is that you really just care about providing what you can for the students, and not, like you say, the business side is the stuff that has to get done, but it's not like I'm running this school so I can make money. It's like I'm running this school so that I can provide an education for students and serve them. I guess I feel like there's a lot of probably theater schools and companies that don't have this outlook, but I'm sure there's a lot who have the outlook of it's just a numbers game, and how many kids can we get to sign up, or how much money can we make, rather than what do the students who we have now need, or what can we provide that we're good at, rather than just what can we provide that other people aren't. So I think that's just really inspiring, and I think just really speaks to the heart of what you guys do.
I mean, I think it's also just hard when you're running a business to not get sucked into that part of it, because we've only had our business for 2 years, but I think we are
often trying to balance, because our main goal is to help students and provide education to them, but we are always thinking like we need to do this because it'll help us get more students, or like we have this big dilemma because we want to have small class sizes, but we also can't make enough money to keep operating if we have smaller class sizes, like small enough that we want to have them. So there is a balance, because you can't just do everything the way that you feel like is the best if you're not going to make any money, because then you can't keep your business operating.
It is not wrong to want to serve the most people. It is definitely not wrong to want to serve the most people you possibly can. So like, I don't think you should ever feel bad about that. Also, you cannot continue to serve if you're not taking care of yourself. And part of that is financial compensation, right? Yeah. You guys are at a time where you need to be able to pay yourselves, appropriately compared to, other jobs you might have, right? I'm at a time in life where I need to be able to pay myself appropriately to other jobs I might have, right? And I am very grown, right? I am 48 years old, and I have 3 children and a husband and parents, and, anyway, so all this to say, like, it is not wrong to want to compensate yourselves appropriately, because your students are not the only people to whom you have obligations in life. Yeah. Your family as well.
But I think it's just impressive that you've been able to kind of balance both. And I'm sure there's been times where you haven't been able to, but I think that it can just be easy to like get really sucked into one side of the equation and ignore the other side.
For sure. I see you two doing what I've done a lot, which is kind of erring on the other side, like just being so focused on serving that you could work yourself to death in a very unsustainable way. Like I said, and if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot continue to serve. There's a point at which you'll either burn out or like just literally, like, again, if we didn't charge for what we do, we wouldn't have a space to meet in. We wouldn't have teachers other than, I could teach out of my living room as many students as I could teach, but that's not fair to my family, right? Anyway, so all this to say, I see you two being very, very service focused, which is beautiful and admirable. And that's always been my challenge, right? To remember the business side and the obligations I have, outside of my work life as well.
Yeah, I know you've told us stories of when you would give scholarships or things like that, and then you would not be able to pay yourself anything when you had 3 babies and were driving them to and from work every day. And it sounds like you've learned from experience how to balance the two. That is definitely an important balance, because we've seen you with your kids and you're an incredible mom, and I'm sure that balancing your work life and being a mom hasn't been easy either, but it's really inspiring how you've been able to do it all.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Early when my kids were younger, I would say I blended more than I balanced, just bringing them along with me. We had programs for kids, so they could do them. And then also my husband is my business partner, so he's also kind of a workaholic. I'm like, oh, really? Do we need to talk about this on Thanksgiving? Okay. Yeah, sure. All right, let's get out our computers. But
that's our family story.
Yeah.
That's great though. But I hope that with your Twinspiration here, I hope that you might not have to have some of those experiences I had that were quite so stupid. Maybe you can skip over them because you heard about mine, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate the advice.
Yeah, we'll learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 2 really short questions and then we will let you go.
Yeah, thank you for talking to us for so long.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, we love talking to you. We could talk for hours. Do you want to ask the questions?
Sure. So we have 2 questions that we ask all of our guests at the end of the podcast. The first one is if you have a favorite inspirational quote that you would like to share with the listeners.
Ooh, a favorite inspirational quote. I have so many. Let me think. Gosh, I'm going to have to think on that. Let's circle back in a moment.
Okay.
Then our last question is, since this is a podcast about being twins. We always like to ask all of our guests, if you could have an identical twin, do you think that you would want one?
Oh, that's a great question. I definitely have wished for a twin at times in my life. So I know there were times when I did want one, but I think that it was really the desire to be completely understood, you know, to be appreciated. And of course, a twin is a different person. Really, it was more that I needed to spend some introspective time and understand myself. But what I want, I mean, I grew up with a brother who was just 1 year older than me. It was amazing. We were just always the best of friends. Did we fight? Of course. But mostly, I mean, girls often grow faster than boys. So there was a hot minute where I was taller than him. But anyway, people thought we were twins a lot. So anyway, obviously he was a boy and he was a year older and he was not, I mean, anything like an identical twin. But based on that experience, and then also my mom, I feel like I'm very much like her in a lot of ways. And I love my relationship with her. So yeah, based on those experiences, I would say, yes, I think I would love having a twin.
I would vouch for it. I think it's a pretty lovely experience.
I think it's awful.
Yeah, you wouldn't say that.
Just kidding. I love you.
You know.
It is a really special relationship. It's fun to observe. It's been fun to observe the two of you as you've grown.
Yeah, hopefully we didn't fight too much when we were little in class.
As you got older, you know, and you felt more comfortable, I think a little bit more of your playful, you know, arguments came out.
We ever like fought there. We would like get in the car and fight probably.
But we would like, oh yeah, Ashley was so sad because she's so much worse than, well, no, I wouldn't say that, but I feel like
you were kind of mean, yeah.
No, but like jokingly mean. Now she's the mean one, so tables have turned.
Oh gosh, you guys are too funny. Yeah, it's been really fun to see your relationship. Like I said, especially as you felt more comfortable and a little freer.
Yeah.
I am really stumped on this quote. I'm not really coming up with anything.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
I like all of a sudden I'm drawing a complete and total blank.
That always happens to me when people ask me my favorite things. Kids always ask our favorite movies and favorite TV shows and stuff, and I'm like, oh, next time someone asks me, this is what I'm going to say. I'm just going to remember it, and then I can't even think of a movie.
I have a list on my phone of favorite things that when people ask you those questions, or like when you have to introduce yourself at a meeting or something, and you have to say a fun fact. I have a list of things to say, and then I'll like, especially if it's on Zoom, I'll just like pull out my phone and open the list and find something, because otherwise I can never think of anything. It's a little bit high maintenance, but it helps.
Yeah.
What are your favorite quotes?
Mine is, I don't know what it's from, but it's, what if I fall? Oh, but darling, what if you fly? I don't know. I just love that one. I think it's
from Peter Pan.
Really?
I think so.
Well,
but maybe
cute.
I made that up.
But anyway, I don't know. I really love that one.
Mine is, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll land among the stars.
Wonderful.
Well, I'm sorry this went so long,
Yeah,
but thank you so
for
much for talking to us. This is really amazing.
Thank you. It's been amazing for me too. I just adore you both so much. It's just a joy knowing you, and a joy to see you continue in this creative life.
Well, thank you. It's a
And
joy
of course I will-
meeting you. Yes.
I will love you every bit as much if you ever just decide to, you know, go work at a bank and go to the bar in your spare time. But
I'm pretty sure that's next on my list.
all right. Well, thank you for asking me to do this. Appreciate you both very much. And please stay in touch.
Yes,
Of
thank
course,
you. We
thank
will.
you.
Bye.
Bye.